Hey there nerds, Jimmy Palmquist here, and I thought we could talk a little bit about Star Wars. So as promised, I've seen it 3 times, and I thought, let's talk about the latest experience. Because after each time I've seen it, I've gone to the boards and really tried to see what people were unhappy with and questioning and wondering and those sorts of things. Because this, the 3rd time, was by far the best experience I've had seeing it. It was, again, I saw it in 3D, real 3D this time. First time was 2D, second time was IMAX 3D, so I've gotten a different experience every time. I'm not saying the viewing, like the technical aspects of the film made it better, just the experience altogether made it better. Still, opening scroll, phenomenal. I'm still not entirely sure why Disney didn't put their opening logo in there. As weird as it sounds, I was curious to see it. I'm not sure why they didn't. I still associate Star Wars with the opening 20th century and then the Lucasfilm and then a long time ago and so on and so forth. So I'm not sure they didn't do that. It doesn't matter, but I'm just curious. Some of the things that I want to hit on with this, a lot of people are wondering or complaining why Kylo Ren is uber powerful in the beginning of the movie, where he's able to freeze Poe, where he's able to freeze Rey, and then, you know, extract information, and he just seems uber powerful. But at the end of the movie, Finn challenges him to a lightsaber duel and is able to wound him and get in close, but ultimately lose, and Rey is able to defeat him. Watching the movie again with that in mind, it was really apparent that at the beginning of the movie, there is no light side of the Force. There's no balance. Luke is gone, and nobody else really is able to bring balance to the Force. So all we have is the dark side. And again, this is my opinion, speculation. Kylo Ren is able to reach into the dark side and grab all the power available because there's no balance. As the movie goes along, there's the scene where he and Rey, or he's interrogating Rey, and he reaches into her mind, and it almost was as if at that point he flipped a switch. Yes, Rey had shown some Force abilities earlier, some intuition sort of things, but it really appeared and felt like when he reached into her brain, it flicked a switch, and she became aware of the Force, felt the Force, knew the Force. And the main thing I get from that is when then she turns the interrogation back on Kylo Ren and makes a comment that you're afraid that you will never be as powerful as Darth Vader, your grandfather. I feel at that time we're starting to get this balance. Yes, it's still not anywhere near. Kylo Ren is certainly more powerful, more trained, but he is also in doubt. He doubts his own abilities from the get-go. So now that we have somebody else who shows some force sensitivity, I think he starts to doubt himself even more. I think we're getting more of a balance, so he's less powerful, less energy to tap into. And I think Rey is just pure raw energy, and it's sort of nativity. She doesn't have naivety. I'm sorry, where she doesn't have any reason to doubt. She's just getting it. She's just exploring it. And we can kind of see that with the scene with her and the stormtrooper where she's, you know, come unbind me and drop your gun, which FYI, spoiler alert, that was Daniel Craig, which is pretty awesome. You can tell as he's walking away, he's got a little James Bond strut. You can hear it when he's speaking. You can hear a little bit of his voice. I thought that was pretty cool. But you can see she's experimenting with it. She doesn't have a reason to doubt yet. She doesn't even know what she's doing. She's a big fan of the mythology, or what she thinks is mythology, and comes to find out it's true, which is a great line by Han Solo. But she's just experiencing it, so she has no reason to doubt. She's excited about what she's potentially able to do. So I really think that sort of points to why at the end we see Kylo Ren trying to use the Force to get the lightsaber, but the lightsaber reacts to Rey and lands in Rey's hand. And to me, that just shows that she has this raw power. And again, I believe from things I've I've seen in the film, I guess I could lead to our next little topic. I believe she is also a descendant of Anakin Skywalker, but I think it's by way of Luke. I think there are a lot of things in the film, clues in the film that point to that. The strongest to me is that she was dropped on a desert planet for her own safety and to hide. I see that she seems to have a natural ability with mechanical things, such as when she first meets BB-8, later when she's flying the Millennium Falcon and she's like fixing tons of stuff in the Falcon. That was shown as an ability that Anakin had, and she seems to naturally have it. So I believe she's a direct descendant of Anakin. And to me, there's clues. I don't know if it's just storytelling, but there's clues. Another one being that the lightsaber reacts to her. That was Darth Vader's. That was Luke Skywalker's. And now it goes to her. I believe she's a descendant of Luke Skywalker. And I know a lot of people will probably be like, oh yeah, I saw that coming a million miles away. When I saw it last Tuesday before it was wide release, I had said that, and a lot of reviewers thought a little differently and thought that she was maybe related to like a brother to Kylo, or a sister to Kylo Ren. I don't think that's the case. There's just little things like when she gave Leia a hug, there wasn't the awareness that, oh my gosh, this is my daughter. But there did seem to be some sort of knowledge that Leia has, little knowing that she wasn't letting on. And to me, her being her niece makes more sense than the daughter at that point. But I digress. I think that's her lineage. I think she is also a descendant of Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker, and I think this will be very interesting. And this is something I've already said a million times about Star Wars, is that the original trilogy was the story of Luke Skywalker. You tack on those first three movies, the prequels, and now it shows the evolution of Anakin Skywalker. So you totally changed this story arc. And you say what you will about the prequels, it's not a bad thing that now you're telling a story of Anakin Skywalker. Well, now when we get this first movie in a new trilogy, it looks like we're now focusing on the whole Skywalker clan, and the story, the central character is the Force, and we're talking about bringing balance to the Force. And in my mind, having perhaps the most powerful Jedi and Sith have offspring that would then be in conflict and bring balance to the Force is just amazing storytelling, and I can't wait to see where that goes. Again, pure speculation, can't say that for sure, but that's what I believe. Some other things that I learned just doing research, I obviously wasn't going to research the stuff before the movie. I didn't want any spoilers. And for you people out there that think it's awesome to spoil things, to show pictures of Han Solo getting killed and ruining it for people, I don't understand what the hell your problem is. What joy do you get out of that? Quit being an asshole. Just stop it. There's no good that comes out of that. Stop it. But doing a little more research, I found that the reason the Empire does not exist is, and this was one of my original questions, how do we get from Return of the Jedi to The Force Awakens, where we have a Resistance, we have a New Republic, and we have the First Order? I couldn't understand why we would need a Resistance if we already have a government in place that the Resistance kind of sides with. Resistance means I'm taking you on. Well, a year after the Battle of Endor, there was the Battle of Jakku. And this is where the Empire basically made their last stand and lost. And that's why on Jakku we see Star Destroyers just littering the landscape with Imperial Walkers and X-Wings. And I think that's great storytelling. I'm glad I didn't research it first, but I'm much happier that I know that now, because out of that, there were still very few remnants of the Empire. One Super Star Destroyer left, a couple Star Destroyers, and they sort of limped along. And it would appear that this Supreme Leader Snoke was able to unify them and then build something bigger and stronger. 30 years later, we have what we're seeing with the First Order. I'm very curious to see how big the First Order is. Again, my opinion is I feel like this Star Killer planet was was an experiment, and they sent some of their best and brightest to be on this planet to navigate its first mission. And that's where, to me, General Hux comes in as this sort of young punk upcomer who isn't influenced or tainted by the ways of the Empire. So he's a very big go-getter, and that's why he was put in charge of it. Which leads me to why people were so upset with a third Death Star, essentially. A lot of people complain, well, it's the same storyline. I disagree. I had no problems with it, mainly because if you go back to the prequels, and I know they're not a fan favorite, but you go back to the prequels, what became the Empire, they obviously spent a lot of time, energy, and research on developing the Death Star. The Death Star was an amazing weapon for them. It was going to unify their territories. They were able to disband the Senate, so the local governors were going to be able to rule. And it was the fear of being blown out of the sky that would keep all the systems in line. Obviously, the Emperor felt that this was necessary because he built a second one. And he used the second one to lure the Rebel Alliance into, what would ultimately be what he thought would be their defeat. So to me, the First Order was able to claim a bunch of files and information and data from the Empire. So if you think about it, this is the First Order's first Death Star, even though it's not a Death Star, it's their first one. They're seeing somebody else build something, and they're going to build it bigger and better. And thinking, well, they can't do that to us because we're going to make sure that we close off all the exhaust ports and make sure they can't do that. To me, it's no different than like Tony Stark builds Iron Man and Obadiah Stane builds a bigger version of it. It's like, okay. So I didn't see a problem with that. I feel like if you really think about it, the First Order, this is their first sort of mass destruction weapon. And I understand it kind of acts the same, it looks the same, but if you really dig deeper, this might just be semantics. I mean, they're taking a star, killing it, so now you just killed one solar system, and they're using that energy to shoot it at another solar system to kill the planets. That's a super powerful weapon, and I think it's honestly really impressive, and the way they use it, and this was my misunderstanding, again, a little more research, they did not destroy Coruscant or the solar system of Coruscant. I don't know exactly what planet that was. I forgot the name. But the New Republic moved headquarters off of Coruscant. I'm assuming because they felt it was just so tainted from the Empire. I'm not entirely sure. But they moved it off of Coruscant. So that was not Coruscant. I was really bummed when I first saw the first two times. I'm like, man, that is Coruscant. They just blew it up like it was nothing. Wasn't so. So I'm kind of happy at that. Which leads us to why there is a resistance. Leia and several, like Admiral Akbar, some of the best minds that were associated with the Rebel Alliance, see this First Order as a huge threat. The New Republic doesn't see them as a threat, as much of a threat. So it's sort of like special ops going about trying to stop the First Order. So that's why now General Organa, Princess Leia, Admiral Akbar are leading these resistance fighters against the First Order. Obviously, they are in line with what the New Republic believes, because what they mentioned, the fleet can't save us a couple times, like they've gotten support before. It also goes to show, I thought this was a great touching scene, when Han and Leia are talking about losing their son to the dark side, and they both went back to things that were familiar. Leia, although she is royalty, grew up in a situation, sure, she was a constant fighter. She was always fighting. As a rebel, always fighting. So, she naturally gravitates more to the fighting side of things, the war side. Han was a smuggler, that's what he did, and to have him go back to it, not a stretch. So I have no problem with that. I think that's very cool. Overall, once again, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I highly recommend you go see it several times. I think it's worth it. I think you get so many answers. And as I've told many people, I was born in 1977. I was born in June of 1977. So I have lived with Star Wars my whole life. There hasn't been a day where Star Wars didn't exist in my world. But I was at a young age when those movies came out. I did not get to experience the wonder of where is this movie going. I don't even remember seeing Star Wars for the first time. I remember Return of the Jedi in the theater, but I don't remember seeing Star Wars for the first time. And obviously, being 6 when Return of the Jedi came out, I didn't have any concept. I was watching the action. I loved it. I loved the Ewoks. It was fantastic to me, which is also why I understand there are several people that enjoy the prequels because they were young. That's why Jar Jar Binks exists, for the kids. But I digress. When the prequels came out, obviously I was of age to understand what was going on, but at every turn, you knew the final result. You knew where the movies were taking us. And that was they would always lead into the original trilogy. There was no doubt about it. We knew Anakin was going to be Darth Vader. We knew Obi-Wan was going to have to go to battle with him and defeat him. We knew all these things. Well, now with The Force Awakens, we have a Star Wars universe for the first time in my lifetime. I have no idea where it's going. Not a clue. And it's honestly a little unnerving. Because at one point, I knew just about everything there was to know about Star Wars. And now, with this new world and this new universe that J.J. Abrams and Lucasfilm, Lawrence Kasdan has created, I have no idea. And I'm thrilled. I cannot wait to see the next one. I cannot wait to see Rogue One. I think all these additional stories are only going to add to this universe that I already love. I know there's going to be movies that I don't like, but it's okay. A lot of franchises have movies I don't like. But I think there's going to be a lot more movies that I do like. So I'm excited. Go check out The Force Awakens. I'm sure I'm going to see it a fourth time. I'm sure I'm going to learn even more. Go check it out.